Aaron, hello. Welcome to the Octopodcast. How are you?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. It's been a while. I've been having trouble keeping up with the necessary pace of getting YouTube videos out there, but I'm kind of working behind the scenes to get a better train going because the algorithm, it seems, will forget you if you don't do it like every week. And so, like, we do it once and then it falls off. So Aaron and I really appreciate our 21 or so visitors that we seem to have after every video we do.
Woo!
Woo! So, but
Hi, Mom.
exactly, exactly. And anybody who's interested in cephalopod information and news, and so we're covering the news. Let's get into it. The first is this recurring story that we've talked about quite a bit, and that is the this octopus bloom, this surge of I believe it's common octopus off the shores of the UK. And that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So the news keeps popping up. What the most recent news was that there was recently a 500 pound, 500,000 pounds, about $650,000 in US money, of octopus catch. And so in one single day at one port, and so there have been regulations placed on these boats that have been coming in and dropping pots, these octopus pots, to catch all these octopuses. And so there's regulation being put in place because it's very disruptive to the crab and lobster trade. And I want to bring it back up just because it seems to keep evolving, and it is this kind of constant storyline. It just made me wonder more broadly about cephalopod migration and what we know about that, and how unusual is it to have, they call it a bloom, but like, how common or uncommon is that for different species of cephalopods to suddenly pop up somewhere and flourish? And like, is that kind of permanent, or does that last? I know we don't, like, we only have very few instances of tagging squid. Dr. Gilly from Monterey many years ago comes to mind. He had a lab where they were tagging Dosidicus gigas jumbo squid to track their migration behaviors or whatever. But and I know you study glass squid, and that's even harder to understand. It's more like, oh, we found one, like knowing nothing else about migration or anything else. But regardless, I did want to lead with that story and chat about that with you a bit. What's your take on the permanence of that, or that behavior of octopuses suddenly showing up somewhere?
So I don't know that I have the knowledge to definitively speak on this. Like this is not my wheelhouse. This is a very much fisheries and behavioral ecology,
Mhm.
and I am just a lowly taxonomist. But things that I have noticed in my years in the Ceph realm is that this is a mix of, yes, these things do pop up, blooms do occur where we see a large outbreak of the population, and sometimes those blooms will stick around and the population will continue to live at that quantity, and then other times they'll decline, but not to the extent they were, and then sometimes they'll just disappear completely.
Mm.
It's very much case by case basis, and it's dependent on nutrients in the water, it's dependent on temperature, it's dependent on trawling, it's depending on all of those other kind of factors which are both kind of natural and man-made. So it's hard to say what's going to happen for this particular bloom. You mentioned Humboldt's, which is kind of the one that comes to mind for me. And we look at the population patterns of the Humboldt squid over the years, and we see definitely an increase in their habitat. As they bloomed, as they expanded their range up the coast of North America, there was seasonal like ebbs and flows, but in the summer, I think it's in the summer when we usually get the beachings of all of those Humboldt squid. That's kind of a yearly occurrence now. And so it seems like their habitat, their range has permanently expanded as their populations have grown. But that could all, if we get, if we have temperature changes and we go into, say, a snap cold couple of years, that might decrease the range, because I'm pretty sure Humboldt prefer kind of warmer areas.
Yeah, for sure. Which also brings up, we were talking offline about a headline we both saw relating to the colossal squid. Tell me a little bit about that.
So someone sent me this YouTube clip, and I know that you saw it too. And the title of the clip is called "Colossal Squid Are Everywhere. We're just looking for them incorrectly." And I went, it's an interesting title. So I watched the video. And first off, let me just state for the record, colossal squid are not everywhere. They are limited to Antarctic waters. We can't, it's behind me. So the title itself is quite clickbaity. They're trying to get you to click on it. And what it is it's an amalgamation of some footage of colossal squid attaching themselves to long lines in Antarctica, but they're splicing it with research done about giant squid, and particularly the use of red light and e-jellies back in 2013 when they were doing that hunt for the giant squid. And we got that kind of first in situ look at this animal in its natural environment. And so the parallels that they're drawing from that is, look how effective this was for the giant squid. We should do that for the colossal squid as well. And, after that success, it was done for the colossal squid, and as far as I know, has not yet been successful. And they do talk about the factors that affect looking for these large animals in the Antarctic. It's a tough area to go and explore by a boat. And it's a tough area to send ROVs into and to get all the technology working. So there's a lot of factors, but the majority of the video, it's about I think it's about a 15-minute video. There's only about a minute and a half that's actually about colossal squid, which sometimes they call giant squid, which, as we all know, two separate species. And then a lot of it is just kind of other marine creatures and how they are affected by red light. And so, yeah, it's a bit clickbaity. Some of the information it's not incorrect, but the way that they phrase it omits specific things about Masonica teuthus and just kind of makes generalizations about marine life. So I don't know that I take everything it says quite at face value.
Yeah, there's so much of that. That's why I didn't even click on it, Aaron. Thank you for doing it, though. But I did see the headline, and I figured it would be something that would come up when I actually called for the news, and it didn't come up in this weekend's issue number 8 of the weekly roundup of Octobot news. But one thing you said there reminded me too. I'm pretty sure you look also at the thread on TONMO that Archifan typically contributes to, right?
Yeah.
It's an old thread going back probably 20 years, where we used to use this thread, and we still do use this thread to share news stories or photos or whatever of a living giant squid, Architeuthis, not colossal squid, but Architeuthis. And in the past week, Archifan posted a series of like 4 different photos, apparently all from the Philippines, apparently from different boats, because he looked closely at the photo. Because I was like, it looks like the same specimen. And he was like, yeah, but no, they're definitely different accounts posting them. And they're also, it looks like the boats are different. So I'm okay. And his other comment was, pretty rare for giant squid to be seen in Philippine waters. And he also observed that they looked kind of sluggish. which I would agree. Although the first one, you had a pretty good look at the eye. We have another cool thread on the giant squid eye, by the way. Started by a username that starts with 8M, 8XM, something like that. I can't recall it offhand, but I'll put it on the screen below, and I'll put a link in the description below to a pretty cool thread about Archifan eye that he or she started. But did you have any thoughts on that? Because it's actually kind of related, right? We're talking about giant squid showing up in Philippine waters, not as common.
In terms of that, headline that we were just talking about, if we wanted to look at a squid that theoretically could be found everywhere or more cosmopolitan, the giant squid might better fit that bill. So it is more commonly found New Zealand and Japan, kind of more temperate zones, but that doesn't mean that it lives exclusively in those zones. There's lots of evidence to show that giant squid have pretty much been seen popping up in both temperate and tropical waters. It's, again, just another case of we've got an animal that's extremely enigmatic, and we rarely see it kind of at the surface, except for when it gets caught on a fishing line of some sort. And that doesn't happen every day. No. So, for all at the same time in the Philippines, that is a little bit mysterious. You wouldn't expect that. Unless it is the same one, just from different angles. But no, they are seen kind of in global waters, and it wouldn't be uncommon to find them in tropical waters. It's just uncommon for us to see them there.
Yeah, and you'll remember I think it was November, I think we were doing a podcast and we said, hey, let's check back in January. Because, right, we're going to hold ourselves accountable, and we're going to do a count of how many giant squid we're seeing, because that happens pretty commonly in January, in off the waters of Japan, if I recall correctly, in like December and January. And then our January episode came around, and we're like, there are a couple, but nothing. It's not a big spike.
Yeah, it wasn't big.
Yeah. But this does seem like to be a bit of a flurry, if that's confirmed. So we'll provide a link to the thread there too. I probably should take a closer look at each of the pieces of evidence and kind of foot all that. But yeah, different specimens, different boats, same time period is possible. That was the whole theme, Aaron. I think of the first several minutes of this podcast is talking about where these animals pop up and how long do they stay, and what are the migration habits. And the short answer, right, isn't it? We don't really have a great idea. There's been some tagging done. Maybe with technology, we're going to get a lot smarter with that pretty fast. But at least sitting here, doesn't seem like we're a whole lot further along in terms of.
We're not there yet. Although we can make this, we can give a really good clickbaity title to this Octopodcast.
All right.
Giant squid blooms are everywhere, affecting global waters. That does bring me to the next article I'd like to talk about, which is also a bit clickbaity. I'm sorry, everybody. But there was an article about from CNN Science about scientists are cracking a code of interspecies communication. Is that a good thing? And the article itself is about a variety of different vertebrates and how we're using technology to be able to look at how they communicate. And the reason why this got tagged was because there is a single line in here that says that this was used in 2025 for cuttlefish. And so Octobot grabbed that and went, oh, look, cuttlefish, they're making breakthroughs in communication with cuttlefish. And I feel like I need to say, Octobot, I'm sorry, you got it wrong, buddy.
All right. So wait, time out. This is very similar to a recent conversation being had on TONMO.
Okay.
First of all, not Octobot's fault. The TONMO administrator's fault. No, so I understood that it was just a blurb, and Octobot said it's just a blurb. Maybe you don't want to include that in this issue. I said no. that's pertinent. Even though it was just one little line, the fact that it was observed, the whole article isn't going into great depth about the cuttlefish, and maybe the way I'll have to take another look at how the final edit went out in that issue. Maybe it over. So once again I made an editorial decision to be like, yeah, go with it. But I'm missing a step in my operation, which is review the final. This isn't hard, by the way. Just review the final edit and make sure that it kind of stands up to muster. Hold on, the doorbell's gonna ring.
Okay.
Because
your Amazon parcel has arrived.
We're getting our dog Rosie groomed, and she's we're just gonna get a bath and a haircut. All right. Anyway, lost my train of thought, unfortunately, with that. I was just admitting my mistake. So the right thing for the operation is for me to review the contents and disclose. Like, by the way, this is just a small mention, but the reason we're including it is because cuttlefish were grouped in as part of this broader observation. So help me with the fake news aspect of this. Did I also misunderstand, which is entirely possible? The reference, didn't we observe the manner in which cuttlefish communicate a little bit, and can we not extract potential ways to communicate with them in the future? Is that not fair?
No, we definitely did. This was done in 2025, which the article does mention. I think it was more, I got my hopes up, and I was like, yes, this is going to be a great article. And then I read through it and I was like, oh man, it's just something last year that we've already talked about.
So that's great customer feedback. Thank you, Aaron. I'll just add it to my pile of things that I need to improve about the process for TONMO overall. But no, it's a really good point. But I'm aligned with including it, but not with how I did it. So I have to lay myself down in front of, because it's not fair to Octobot. Octobot's getting a lot of bad, press lately. It's like, no, that was me. Octobot actually really trying to help me out, and
Yeah.
I'm not doing it any favors. Trying to do too much. That's fair. Okay. I thought there was another story that was hanging off of that, but what's our next story?
I don't know. I have another story hanging off that. So one thing that is not AI and is taxonomy related, so I appreciate that a lot, is we've got a newly described deep sea octopus from the Galápagos Islands. It was described in May of this year, but if you look at the picture, this is from the fieldmuseum.org. And if you look at the picture, you might think that this looks really familiar. And not just because, deep sea octopuses look like deep sea octopuses, but because this is a really cute octopus, and everyone made a really big deal about this quite a while ago. It was first seen in 2015, and it is only being described this year. Now, I think the really important thing about that is just kind of showcasing the length of time it takes for science to go from initial discovery to actually fully understanding what the animal looks like and how we can describe it, and getting that published. It's a long process. This isn't something that's instant. Yeah. So I really enjoyed reading through this article. It's written primarily by Janet Voigt from Field Museum, who has done some amazing octopus work. But she teamed up with Stephanie Smith, and what they did was they used CT scans to get internal images of the octopus so that they didn't have to dissect it. And that's important because when we describe a new animal, we designate something which is called a type specimen. And this is generally the first ever version of this animal that was discovered and taken out of the ocean and then preserved. And it's kind of the be all and end all of this is this new animal. Everybody look at this. And so if you ever see this in the future, you have to compare it to the type specimen. So you want to have it in good condition. And so I thought this was really interesting that they're using technology to do all of the things that traditionally we would have done by cutting the animal apart, so that they have still a complete octopus for future people to examine. So yeah, technology, taxonomy, it all combined, and I thought this was really cool.
So typically the type specimen is destroyed, or maybe it's put back together. Is it preserved at all, or is the type dissected and just noted, documented, and discarded, or is it?
No, it's preserved, it's kept. And the quality of type specimens when you go around to museums to do taxonomy work, it's going to vary a lot. I was pretty fortunate when I was looking at mine. Most of the time, they just kind of have a single incision, because as we've seen before, glass squid pretty much have nothing inside them anyway. You just have to make one cut, and you can look at all of the nothing they have inside them.
It looks exactly like it looked on the outside.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate, but I know that other people in the Elsie's research lab, when they would go look at theirs, things would just be dissected. There'd be pieces in other jars, and there'd be internal organs separated, and it was like a horror movie nightmare. So these things are all kept together. They're not discarded. Anything from a type specimen needs to be kept at whatever museum is housing them indefinitely, because you can't get a second type specimen. You have to always use the first one. So it's a great thing that they've done in this research to find new ways to do traditional techniques, but without damaging the specimen. So thank you to the team at Field Museum.
Yeah, very cool. I have to ask you, when you encounter something like what you just described, where you've got organs in different jars, like it's all over, what a nightmare. As a scientist studying that, do you, and maybe it depends, or maybe it depends on permission, do you go and try to fix those problems as they exist within the museum that you're given access, right, by the curator or whatever? And then do you go in and say, hey, this organ actually was put in a separate, can we maybe just punch up this type specimen a little bit, but bring it true to form? Or are you more of like, oh, well, as an art, I don't want to disrupt the archiving of this as is, just put everything back the way I found it? How do you deal with that kind of stuff?
No, that's a good question. Every museum will have slightly different ways in which they've archived things. Now, when pieces are taken out of a type specimen, the jars are all kind of grouped together. So sometimes an elastic band will be around them. They're all stored in the same place. And a lot of this was done in the early 1900s, late 1800s, when kind of there was this big let's describe everything boom in the scientific community. And they didn't have technology then. So the museums have done the best they can to take these very old specimens and maintain them to the best of their abilities. So as a visiting researcher, you don't want to come in and step on toes and say, no, this is because they had no control over what was going on in the early 1900s.
Right.
And so museums put a lot of effort into making sure that type specimens, in whatever condition they're in, are stored to a state in which is going to best serve the scientific community going forward. So they'll keep an eye on them and make sure that the liquids in the jar that help preserve the organic matter are topped up, and they'll keep all of that in check. But no, as a visiting researcher, you don't really want to suggest what their job is. They know what their job is, and they are doing it to the best of their abilities.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's why museums won't let me touch their stuff, I suppose. Very cool. All right, what else do we have?
Last podcast, we chatted a lot about remarkably bright creatures.
Remarkably bright creatures, yes.
Remarkably bright creatures. And I had a few people come up and say, you only watch the parts about the octopus? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to watch the human parts. I see humans every day. Anyway, since we had that chat, there was another article that showed a little bit about the behind the scenes creation of the CGI octopus and how they made its movement. And I will have to say, I know that I harped a lot about the movement and behavior and that it didn't quite feel true to life for me. The effort that they put into it to try and make it look lifelike is a lot. They had a lot of layers and they had a lot of different CGI techniques to get true movement out of this animal. And so I have to say, you know, I give them credit for all of the effort that they put in. I think the main thing that I noticed, even when watching this video, it's still the behavior thing. You know, they made some assumptions about what the octopuses do, and the part that stood out the most to me is there's a lot of these scenes where Tova, Sally Field's character, is standing at the top of the octopus tank talking to Marcellus the octopus, and they just kind of have the octopus float up to the top of the tank and just kind of hover there, like it would be, you know, as we would do if we were treading water and just paddling. And octopuses don't really do that. They don't just float at the top of the water and look at something above the waves. They have to, you know, have support and they have to climb on something.
Yeah,
and
climbing up the side of the tank would probably have been a better look, right?
Yeah,
like just kind of go to the side of the tank, crawl up, and then meet her there.
yeah. So I think that was where my brain was like, that's where the uncanny valley hit. That was the moment that I was like, this doesn't behave like an octopus would. So, you know, lots of credit for the effort and the technology they used to get the octopus as lifelike as they could. And you know what? I know in a few years that technology will be able to hit it right on the head, and I won't be able to tell the difference at all.
Sure.
We're just not quite there yet.
Yeah. Well, you know, they should have hired you as a consultant, and they could have, you know, leapfrogged their own capabilities.
Yeah. It was filmed just down the road. I totally could have been a consultant.
That's right. Missed opportunity for them.
Now that brings me to our last article. So yeah, if you wanna jump in on this, go ahead. But I've got something kind of closely connected.
Bring it.
This is octopuses doing something that octopuses don't do, which is skateboarding. So yes. We've got a fun little kind of slice of life article from futurism.com about a TikToker who had a pet octopus and has a video of him walking his cat and his pet octopus, which is just on a little tank on a skateboard around the neighborhood. And it's bizarre.
It's bizarre. And it's obviously not recommended. We had a gentleman, goes by the name of Wolfgang, and there's a thread on TONMO, which I will include below, where he takes put on a big endeavor he has an octopus tank at home, and he wanted to bring it out to the park. And he did it. He filled it. He had a whole system where he would have the octopus go from the tank into a holding tank that he put on the back of his bicycle, and he would ride his bicycle to the park. And he had a whole thread on it. And at the time, I didn't really. If that thread were live today, I would have engaged with it more deeply than I did at the time. But again, I'll include that below. So yeah, that's like the second such instance. I don't think I've ever heard of anything like that ever happening outside of those two instances. And it's impressive for a hobbyist to be able to pull that off, and actually like. And it's an interesting, kind of thought experiment to be like, I want to bring the octopus around our world and help it see more than what it would see in its own ocean. By having a home tank, you're already doing that a bit, right? You're bringing them into a living room or something like that, or a utility room or whatever, and that is not their home environment. But to take it outside into the real world, skateboarding no less, Yeah, not condoned. I wouldn't recommend it at all, even for the most
No.
experienced keepers. I will credit Wolfgang. I mean, if I thought it was abusive or completely inappropriate, I would have, you know, done something about the thread. I try not to delete threads, but I have for sure. If it's irresponsible, if it's blatantly irresponsible.
I will
Go ahead.
say,
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that Wolfgang did a presentation at the Okinawa kayak last year.
Okay.
Because this is ringing some bells aside from a TONMO thread. We did have someone present on all of the experiments and um, creating enrichment for their pet octopus,
Yeah.
and one of them was taking it to the park. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, this doesn't seem ethical. And some of the other experiments that they were doing also did not feel that great to me.
Interesting.
So
Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
aware of others beyond that, but
Yeah, I mean, it's just so my first reaction would be, well, what kind of stress are you putting the octopus through? And that's really hard to know. Like just by looking with your eyes and hoping for the best isn't really what I'm referring to here. So there's that. But the notion of if you've got like this setup where you have a tank extension, which is what I understood he had, where the octopus could just kind of like go into the holding thing, and with a water system. I'm not exactly sure how that worked or how long he calculated you could kind of safely do this, because sitting in like you don't really want to have an octopus sitting in a bucket of water for very long, salt water, obviously. But that's they need heavy filtration, and many species require chillers and all that good stuff. But if you can execute on that in a smooth way, that's why I'll share the thread and folks should weigh in. But if you can execute on that in a smooth way and document your efforts, which I also think is important. I think it's good that this was presented at Kayak, because that's transparency in this space, right? So, and then the responsibility falls on us to probe if we think something's askew, right? But I regarded that thread overall as being interesting, dangerous, and risky, but interesting, and I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't recommend it. And all an article like the one that you're referencing, the skateboard one. Again, a lot of this is about going viral, and that's problematic, right? Like just trying to, show off or do something that's seemingly, it's like a Mr. Beast type activity, I guess. Which again, we're not TONMO. We're not in it for us. We're in it for the cephalopod, and cephalopods do not care about going viral or whether remarkably bright creatures wins an Oscar. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So it's just about information and how do we get to understand them better, and how can we ensure the betterment of cephalopods and the things that we do. That's what we try to do here, right, Aaron? That's the point.
absolutely.
all right.
Yeah, I watched the video. It seemed like an attention grab.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate for the octopus because, as you mentioned, numbers of things could go wrong in that whole process, and you don't want to be subjecting your octopus to something that's going to be dangerous for it.
Right. Well, wait. Sorry. Repeat that last line again.
You don't want to be subjecting the octopus to something that could be dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for people that keep their octopuses, we really appreciate on TONMO you sharing stories and journals of them, but please don't do anything that's going to endanger the octopus's life.
Right. 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 We appreciate that you're trying to learn and you're looking to experience and you're looking to share those experiences. I'm all for TOMO members going viral because they are doing the right things and they are sharing, their practices for for improving the lives of cephalopods in home aquariums. Well, everybody has to remember, like, I get a lot of flack, of course, about like, hey, you run this community and, octopuses don't belong in home tanks. And like, you're not doing right by octopuses by doing this. Well, I'm not looking to exploit. I'm not looking to, I'm not looking to have TONMO be a vehicle where more people become octopus owners. It's actually not my intention. I acknowledge that people want to become octopus owners, period. It's just, it's out there and it happens anyway. Someone will get a live rock and will have an octopus hitchhiker in it. And they're like, oh my gosh, how do I take care of this? That happens. It's happened over the years. And it's not uncommon at all. Or someone will go to a wet market and see a living octopus where people are buying it to throw it in a boiling pot of water. And some enterprising individuals will say, I'm going to buy that octopus and to give it a good life. And
I've seen so many of those stories on my feed recently. Oh, they get me.
yeah, and they work. Sometimes they work really well. I mean, we've had a member bring one home from a market and it lived for over a year in their home tank, and I think that's fantastic. So those are the kind of things that I gravitate toward, and so I appreciate everybody. We are going to have more home octopus tank content to share on this channel. I have to just kind of get into that rhythm of sharing more. Yes. Because it's really good work that these people are doing, and they're sharing because they want us all to, see what they're seeing, and I think that's a good thing. I think transparency is good, and it helps demystify these amazing creatures. And we should all, if we want to know more about them, this is a great way to learn more about them. So cool. Thanks for watching this episode. Obviously, you have interest in cephalopods, because it certainly isn't a viral video. But it is it is informative, and it is in honor of cephalopods. That's why we do it. Aaron, thank you for your time this week. Great updates as always, and we'll see you next time.
See you in July, everybody.